Good morning to you, Lisa.
Good morning, Julia.
Good morning. Now, obviously a very big day. It's about 5 o'clock UK time that we're going to see the actual inaugural process going on with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. He's going to be the 46th President of the United States. She, the first woman Vice President. This after Donald Trump has sent out lots of pardons, including the likes of Steve Bannon on fraud charges and others, and gave his farewell speech yesterday. What are your expectations and hopes from a Joe Biden presidency? I mean, I'm assuming not a big fan of Donald Trump. How much better do you think things will be, and why?
Well, I think there's a real opportunity for Britain and the world to reset after a very difficult few years. We've seen huge rising tensions between the US and China. We've seen a global instability. Benedict just mentioned the Iran nuclear deal. We've seen nuclear weapons get dangerously out of control in the last few years. But the biggest thing really that everybody is facing is COVID. And we've now got a president who is coming in with a very, very clear plan to get a grip on the health crisis, to start to reboot the American economy and start to play a role on a world stage, again, rejoining the World Health Organization and helping the world to get a grip of the COVID crisis. That is really good news for Britain if we're in a position to capitalise on that. I listened to what Priti Patel was saying on your show earlier. I think it's absolutely right that Joe Biden is a pragmatist who will want to work with the British government. But we have been left in an extremely weak position by the antics of the Prime Minister, not just over the last few months, which have been noticed very much in Washington from the Democrats, but also over recent years. I think feelings about Boris Johnson run very, very deep in the Democratic Party after the insults that he's flung at President Obama over the years. And there is a job of work to be done to repair that. We're very keen that the government does. It's in the country's interests, but it's extraordinary that they've left us in such a strategically weak position at this crucial moment.
What antics are you referring to?
There were some comments a few years ago which senior Democrats have reminded us of several times in conversations that Keir and I have had with them over the last few months about President Obama, disparaging remarks about his Kenyan ancestry.
Were they disparaging remarks? I remember the article. It wasn't his argument that because, again, it's not an argument I necessarily agree with. I'm not giving a comment on that. But Boris Johnson's argument, I think, was that because of his Kenyan ancestry, he didn't have a strong sort of link with Britain. He didn't have that sort of that link with Britain, and his links were sort of elsewhere in the world. Was that disparaging?
For someone who has experienced racism, yes, I would say it's a classic dog whistle that we recognise. But more importantly for Britain, it was recognised as such by Joe Biden and by senior Democrats over in the United States. Now, there is no question that Joe Biden he's a grown-up. He's going to come and have a relationship with Britain, not least because we're chairing the G7 this year. We are hosting the world's biggest climate conference, and he will want to see action on those things. But I think he'll also be looking to Britain with a sense of bewilderment. The government has signalled a few months ago that we wanted to end what Boris Johnson himself admitted was a decade of retreat from the global stage under the Conservative government. And yet he didn't have any clear plans about what he wants to do on the global stage, what sort of partnership he wants with the United States. And that is a big problem for the UK, because if you look at France, if you look at Germany, they know exactly what they want out of that relationship with the United States. That has been the problem over recent years. For all the cozying up to Donald Trump, we've come away with absolutely nothing to show for it.
And yet, for all the talk you're saying that, they're very angry, they're not happy about it, and we don't have a close relationship, but the first phone call to anyone from the European Union was to Boris Johnson, not to Emmanuel Macron and not to Angela Merkel, from Joe Biden after he became elected.
Precisely my point is that so precisely the point I was making is that Joe Biden is a grown-up. He'll want to have a relationship with Britain, but he'll want to know what Britain is putting into that relationship and what we want out of it. And, a few months ago, Boris Johnson announced, for example, some changes to military spending that was meant to signal that we want to deepen and strengthen that relationship with the United States. That's a really important thing. That military and security relationship has always been important to British security. But over the Atlantic, the Democrats are looking with astonishment at a series of recent decisions not to have a relationship with the EU on foreign policy, security and defence. They can't understand why Britain would do that.
You're saying that Britain now doesn't have a relationship with the European Union. I mean, that on these issues. Of course it does. We've just come out of the formal bodies.
Julia, factually wrong. We took it off the table in June last year. We
From
said that we didn't want to have an agreement or negotiate. So we have a 1,200-page agreement with the European Union, and foreign policy, security and defence is not part of it. I mean,
because
that is
those are issues that the British people should have made by governments that are accountable to them. And when it is in our interest to work with the European Union neighbours, we will do so. And when it is not in our interest, we will not do so. As they did, as they've done over this. That is how international diplomacy works.
Very good point, and that's exactly what we've done. So, for example, when Theresa May rightly expelled 30 Russian diplomats after the Russian government used chemical weapons on British soil, she went to the European Union and asked for their support, and it was given.
And you think it wouldn't have been given another scenario?
So effective.
America isn't part of that, the European Union, and yet America did it too. So why do you need to be in the European Union to do that?
Well, that's the point. Now, as I'm making, you don't have to be in the European Union. You just have to have an agreement with the European Union, and that has been the value to the United States of the relationship with Britain, is that we have acted as a bridge between Europe and the United States for quite some time. What's not clear now is who we're a bridge with at all.
We're a bridge with ourselves.
We've seen not just Boris Johnson, but Theresa May trashing alliances around the world. This is the moment, this is the year when the UK has to step up and start to reverse that. If you don't want to take my word for it, take Boris Johnson's word for it. He accepted a month ago that we've had a decade of retreat. It has damaged Britain's interests, and it is now time to change course.
Okay, again, you see a huge number of international trade deals being signed. Doesn't look at all like we're doing that at all. Let's come back to what's happening.
Well, I'll just pick you up on that, because the one trade deal that the UK government was absolutely desperate to do was with the United States.
Well, it was with
all
the EU,
of the cozying up to Donald Trump. They wanted to do a trade deal with the United States. That was the rhetoric from government ministers, cabinet ministers, over and over again. We're going to do a fantastic trade deal with Donald Trump. And when it came down to it, when Keir Starmer and I met with the Secretary of State, when we met with the ambassador, they were very clear. They were putting America first, and
as they should do.
Right. They are the American government. But our government didn't manage to do the same. And so we didn't get a trade deal. And all we saw was huge tariffs slapped onto crown jewel industries like the Scotch whisky industry. And our government ministers absolutely powerless to do anything about it.
As indeed were France and Germany and other countries in the EU.
They didn't see.
They were equally powerless to do anything about it.
They didn't see these retaliatory tariffs
slapped
onto some of their key
Industries.
industries.
No, they did.
The Scotch whisky industry is a crown jewel industry in the United
Kingdom. And similar tariffs were put on major exports from France
Trump,
as well.
Who they saw as their key ally and partner, slapped tariffs on them and refused to take them off. Now, it's one of the things that we have been raising consistently with the US government, but to no avail. And for all of the cozying up to Donald Trump, they weren't able to get those trade deals. That's why I say that it's time to reverse these needlessly antagonistic relationships and start to actually get serious.
I do want to, Lisa, I do want to move on just very briefly. I know we've not got you for much longer. So apologies for interrupting you. I do apologise for that. But again, I did think it's interesting. I don't remember everyone criticising on your side Emmanuel Macron when he was cozying up, being all cuddly with Donald Trump when he first went over to visit him in the White House. It's amazing how that criticism only happens of Tory politicians in the UK and not of anyone else. Let's talk though about.
Come on, that's not true.
That is literally what happened, but there we are. Lisa, let's talk about the lockdown.
If you want to move on, don't level baseless charges at
Did
me.
you criticise Emmanuel Macron for visiting Donald Trump?
No,
did you or did you not? Did you criticise Emmanuel Macron for visiting Donald Trump? No, you did not.
Sorry, I've never criticised anyone for visiting
Donald
Trump. I've just told you that Keir Starmer and I had a meeting with the Secretary of State when he came over, Mike Pompeo. I've spoken regularly to the US ambassador, Woody Johnson. The reason for that is that it is incredibly important for Britain to have a relationship with the United States, but that should be based on defending our interests and on shared values, and that is what this government.
Please let me get on to issues happening here, affecting more people here listening to the show, and that's lockdown. Your party massively supporting lockdown. I mean, frankly, as far as I can tell, you'd have had a lockdown the entire time since last February. But in terms of an exit strategy, we're now told in reports today in The Sun with Harry Cole, very well connected journalist, that the government isn't isn't looking at even starting any exit strategy until early April, beginning of Easter. Not many people thought it was February. Many people then thought it would be the start of March. No, it's early April. I've always known it was going to be that long away. Could not actually see even major restrictions starting to be lifted until May or June. Do you support lockdown continuing all that long, given the fact that actually lockdowns hurt the poorest, most disadvantaged people in the most precarious jobs, the children at the most disadvantaged families, at the worst schools? The people being hurt by lockdown are the very people you claim to care the most about.
Yeah, I mean, I'd really like to see the economy, schools in particular, as a priority, but the economy more generally opening up as soon as is safely possible. I mean, it's one of the reasons that we urged the government to get ahead of this, because we wanted to see it for as short a time as possible so that we can start to open things up again. I think the way that you frame that actually is not right. That the reason that we support health restrictions is so that you can get grip on the virus and get the economy up and running again. And you are right, Julia, that lockdown has hurt a lot of people, including children who keep me awake at night in Wigan because they are out of school. Many of them don't have access to iPads or laptops or the data that they need. And I support keeping people safe, and I support getting a grip on the virus, but we've got to keep children learning. The sooner we can get children into school safely, the better. And actually, I think this might be a bit of mischief in the newspapers. I'm not sure. But from the conversations we've had with SAGE scientists, and we talk to them regularly, they've always said that the moment that they feel that the UK will turn a corner is sometime in the spring, sometime around April, when the seasons start to work with us rather than against us, and the vaccine has been sufficiently rolled out that you can start to loosen those restrictions. I think that's what the government has been aiming for. Certainly, we've been talking to them about that and urging them to do it. And I think they are right to say we open up as soon as possible, but we don't do it unless it's safe.